What is up, gamers? FCast and Chill here. The Corrupted Gauntlet is one of the most dangerous areas in the game for a Hardcore Ironman, but it gives some of the best rewards that you'll really want if you want to progress your account into the late game. The BOFA is just too good to pass up, and on a hardcore this can be really intimidating to go for. And so my goal with this video today is to show how you can comfortably do Corrupted Gauntlet on a Hardcore Ironman and get yourself a BOFA. This is going to be through the use of the Tier 3 prep for Tier 3 armor. As you can see, I've been playing on my hardcore quite a bit, and I'm actually at 400 Corrupted Gauntlet kill count and still alive. So clearly this method works, and I just want to share it with you guys, and hopefully you can do this yourself too. First, we're going to talk about plugins. There's a few plugins that make the Corrupted Gauntlet a lot safer and just easier to deal with, especially when doing T3 armor. So the first thing you'll want to get is you'll want to go to the plugin hub and get the Gauntlet plugin installed. This one's going to be helpful for a couple reasons. One is that it has resource tracking. So if you go into the resource tracking options within this plugin, you can actually set the amount of each item that you need, and it'll show up in the top left of your UI. And as you go through the Gauntlet prep, it'll tell you how many more you need to get the full resources. So for Tier 3 prep, you're going to need 13 of each of the ore, bark, and the fruit. You're going to want 3 leaves for making the potions, 2 weapon frames, of course, and then at least 6 fish, and you'll need 760 shards to craft everything, which is a shit ton. We're going to get through how to get all that within the time limit, but first, make sure you have all these settings so this plugin will track all of that for you. The next thing you'll want to do with this plugin is you'll want to go to the Hunllef section, and you'll want to make sure that outline tornado tile is selected to true tile. Having the true tile of the tornadoes during the Hunllef fight makes dodging the tornadoes much easier, and it makes the fight much safer. So we'll talk about that later, but make sure this option is turned on. And then as always in the tile indicators plugin, make sure that you have your own true tile selected. So just make sure you have this highlight true tile box checked. The most challenging part of completing Tier 3 Gauntlet is going to be completing the prep in 7.5 minutes. You're going to need to collect 39 different resources, as well as tons of shards, and kill some demi-bosses to get the Tier 3 weapons. So this is going to be a huge challenge to do in the time, unless you have a method that's pretty efficient to do. So I'm going to break down the prep into 2 phases. So there's going to be a phase 1, which is when you first leave the starting room and collect your initial supplies and then head back to the start. Then we're going to go into phase 2 after that, where you finish up. So with phase 1, your goal is that you want to end up with 24 resources for the armor. Now that can be spread out in any combination that you want. Typically, I'll end up getting something like maybe 12 of one, 9 of another, and 3 of another, or maybe 12, 6, and 6, something like that. Or you could even do 9, 9, and 6, just really any way that adds up to 24. But you're going to want to make sure you have all 24 resources before you head back to the starting area. And this is important for your inventory management later. Ideally, when you're doing this step, you will also end up with at least 230 shards. But if that doesn't happen, it's okay. You don't actually need it, but it does make the next phase of the prep a little bit smoother. So the goal inventory is what you're going to end after your first loot back when you come back to the starting room is 24 resources in your inventory, a stack of shards, you want your teleport crystal, a weapon frame, and then optional, you can have an herb in your inventory, but you don't need it. So this is what it's going to look like when you come back. So to do that, what you're going to do is when you first start your prep, you're going to immediately drop your harpoon and the pestle and mortar as you're running to the rooms. You're going to do a typical loop away from Hunllef down toward the bottom of the screen. I always like to orient my camera so that Hunllef is at the top. And you're going to want to just collect every resource you can possibly find until you have those 24. As you're doing this, you want to pop open rooms that are along your path, even if you're not going in them, just so you can get some more information and learn about what can be in the rooms on the sides. Ideally, you pop open all 3 demi-boss rooms away from Hunllef so that you know if there is a demi-boss there that you'll need to kill it later on your second route around the prep. So as you can see, I'm kind of just going around and collecting all the resources, popping open rooms. If I open a room that's a little bit out of the way but has a ton of resources in it, I will not hesitate to go into it and collect all those resources. I think that's totally fine. Also, if you want to get a weapon frame, there's 2 ways of doing this. If you open a room that has 3 smaller mobs, if you kill all 3 of them, it's guaranteed that you'll get 1 weapon frame from them. However, if you find big mobs, if you kill a big mob on your first kill, then it's guaranteed they will drop a weapon frame as well. I like to do this when possible, since they also drop a lot of shards, which is very helpful. And it's actually interesting, the big mobs, there's 3 different ones. There's a scorpion, the unicorn, and the wolf. And the scorpion actually has the least health of the 3, followed by the unicorn, with the wolf having the highest. So if I find some big mobs, I will gladly kill a scorpion to try to, get a weapon frame and some shards. Because like I said, you ideally have 230 when you make your first loop back. If you've completed the original loop where you're going away from Hunllef and you've popped open the demi-boss rooms and you still don't have your 24 resources that you need in your inventory, don't hesitate to run up one of the sides next to Hunllef and then just kind of like loop back down around toward the starting area like this. This is sometimes what you'll need to do if you want to get your resources, and as long as you're heading back to the starting room, you'll be all right. Another thing to note is that if you do end up really far from the starting room when you collect your 24th resource, if you do want to use your teleport crystal to get back to the start, it's not a terrible idea. However, using a teleport crystal means you'll need to craft another one, and this is going to be another 40 shards. So you'll have to remember, instead of the 760 shards that the plugin is trapping, you'll need to get 800 once you craft a second teleport crystal. So honestly, I would only recommend doing this if you have 270 in your inventory and then you need to get back to the start. In terms of timing, you want to finish your first pass and get back to the starting area by 430 remaining at the latest. So if you make it back and there's less than 430 remaining, it might be a good idea to just leave and start over again. Now let's look at a quick example of me doing this in real time and just walking through this first loop of the prep. I start off here and immediately orient my camera so that Hunllef's at the top. As I open the first room, I see that I have 3 wood resources, so I'm going to go ahead and chop all 9 wood, while opening up some rooms along the sides just so I can get more information as I'm chopping. I see there's another room with more wood above me, but I don't need more than 9 wood right now, so I'm not going to bother too much with it. Just opening these doors and finishing chopping my 9 wood in the initial room. The room below me, I see there's even more wood, so I'm going to go up to 12 here. And then there's also some herbs that I can collect, since I'll want one of those. Now that I've chopped my 12 wood, I'm going to pop open this room just so I can see what's in there. And I see there's actually 3 ore nodes. I'm going to go ahead and mine those as well, since that's another 9 resources. Again, this is a little bit out of the way of the main loop back to the starting area, but I think it is worth it just because it's another 9 resources that I can get instantly. As I mentioned before, the scorpions have the lowest health of the big mobs, and they also are guaranteed a weapon frame drop. So I'm going to kill this scorpion, and as I'm doing that, you can see I'm kind of walking backwards towards where I want to go next to drag him that way a little bit. I kill him and grab the weapon frame and the shards, and now I'm going to head back toward the demi-boss room so I can pop those open. In the first one, we see a bear, and there's actually some white resource that I still need. Ideally, you'll have at least 3 of each resource before you make your first loop back to the starting room. Now that I got those, I'm going to do this mining. I actually drop an ore here so I can pick up the 3 ore from the mining node and then drop my pickaxe after and then pick the ore back up. Now you can see I have gotten my 24 resources and I've dropped both my axe and my pickaxe to make room for all the resources. Note that you do not want to ever pick up any fish on this first loop. Now that I've made it back, we're going to talk about what we're doing in the first loop back after we get back to the start, what we want to craft, and how we want to do everything before starting on our second loop. So the first thing that we're going to do when we get to the singing crystal bowl is we're going to make a tier 2 weapon. I like to make the tier 2 staff since it has long range and is pretty powerful even if you don't have the Cock's prayers. So I'll start off using my weapon frame and 80 shards to make my tier 2 staff. Then any shards that I have to make armor, I will go ahead and make all 3 pieces of armor if I can. If I don't have enough shards, that's okay, but ideally you do have enough to make the 3 pieces of tier 1 armor. Then I will also get 3 vials here. Again, if you don't have the shards for the full armor, it's more important to make the vials than it is the full set of armor here. After you make your vials and your basic armor set, then what you're going to want to do is drop every single armor resource on the ground very quickly. So you can just hold shift and spam click them in your inventory. Once you do that, then you're going to want to click on the center item at the center of this prep room, and then go ahead and hit 6 on your keyboard to take everything out of it. This will give you another axe, another pickaxe, a harpoon, and the pestle and mortar. Also note that at the top left of my screen, the UI is showing how many more of each resource I need to make the tier 3 armor. So in this case, I need 4 more ore, 1 more wood, and 10 more of the fruit that I need to pick, as well as the 472 shards. Note that these resource tracking, it counts down when you kill an enemy, even if you don't pick up the drop. So in terms of the shards that it's counting down, if you're not picking up the shards from the mobs you kill, then it will not be accurate. So make sure you pick those up. Now that we've done all this, that's it for the middle between phase 1 of prep and phase 2, and we're ready to move on to phase 2. So just as a quick recap, after you do your phase 1 prep and make it back to the starting room, what you want to do is craft a tier 2 staff, craft 3 vials, and then also craft as much basic armor as you can. If you don't have enough shards for all 3 pieces, that's totally fine. And then once you've crafted the armor you can, your 3 vials and your tier 2 staff, you drop all your armor resources on the ground, and then click on the center item and then hit 6 on your keyboard to take everything. Now we're going to move on to phase 2 of the prep. The goal with phase 2 of the prep is to get everything else we're going to need for the Hunllef fight. If you remember, I said in phase 1 we wanted to get 24 resources for crafting our armor, and it takes a total of 39, 13 of each, to craft the full tier 3 armor. So that means we need to get the remaining 15 during this second cycle of prep. We're also going to want to get 6 paddlefish, so we have some food for the boss. Then we're going to make sure that we get both the bowstring and the orb to make the tier 3 staff and bow. And then the other inventory spots are going to be 2 decanted potions that are up to 4 doses each, our stack of shards, and then our teleport crystal. So that makes our full 28 spots in our inventory. Once we have all this, we'll use the teleport crystal to teleport back to the start, and then do the final phase of crafting everything before we go into the fight. So there's a lot of stuff we have to get, and it is a tight timeline, so I'm going to show you how I do this. This is where the resource tracking plugin comes in very handy, because you can keep an eye on it and know which armor resources that you want to get. So the goal is to go around the room and kill the first few demi-bosses that you see. I mentioned before that we're going to use the staff and the bow every single time for tier 3 because it is safer even if you are really experienced with the halberd. However, if you find a bear first for the first demi-boss, I still recommend killing it. If you kill the bear, then you're able to use your pestle and mortar to grind down the spike and get 80 shards instantly. Also, the first 3 demi-bosses you kill, regardless of which types they are, you're guaranteed to get 1 of each of the tier 3 weapon catalysts. So even if you find 2 bears to start off, kill them both, and then kill, the 3rd demi-boss, either a dragon or a dark beast, at that point you will have both the bowstring and the orb that you need. So I would always recommend killing the bear when you find him when going for the tier 3 prep. So really the goal is to just go around the outside of the room, hitting all of the demi-boss rooms, and as you're doing that, you're going to want to collect the remaining 15 armor resources that you need. Since you'll also need a lot of shards, I would keep an eye on the shard count in the top left that you need from the tracker, how many remaining shards you need. And as you find bigger mobs, these scorpions, unicorns, and wolves, I would kill them as well. Again, you can shoot them and while running to the next room to try to drag them towards you so that once they die, you don't have to backtrack as much to pick up the shards that they drop. You're also going to want to find some fishing spots here, and initially I would only recommend getting 2 fish from the initial fishing spot and then fill up your vials. The reason for this is the later demi-bosses that you're killing, as well as the bigger mobs, could drop some fish, and that'll save you some time on fishing, but also it makes the inventory management much easier, and we'll get into that later. But that's kind of the plan. So we're going to just go around the room, checking demi-boss rooms, killing them, zigzagging to the other demi-boss rooms, and picking up all the remaining 15 resources we need. We're going to make sure we fill our vials with the first fishing spot that we find and just get 2 fish from it, and then continue on and just hope that we can get enough shards by killing the bigger mobs and end up with everything that we need. And remember, the final count of everything is we need our 15 armor resources, 6 fish, a weapon frame, the bowstring and orb, and then we're going to have the 2 potions, stack of shards, and our teleport crystal. So let's show an example of this phase 2 of the prep, and I'll talk through what I'm doing. Alright, now that I've finished up all the stuff that I needed to do with the first step, I'm going to equip my armor and staff, and then immediately fill my vials on this first fishing spot. I'm only going to get 2 fish initially. Then I'm going to come down here and check the demi-boss rooms. I found a dragon, which is pretty fortunate, and I already had the bear over there too. So I'm going to start off by killing both of these. As I'm doing that, I'm going to grind up my 30 shards with my pestle and mortar that I'll need to make my potions. After killing the dragon, I'll pick up everything he dropped and then move over to the bear. I'm going to kill this bear, and then remember I mentioned I can grind up the spike that he drops to get 80 shards. You can get the bear trapped on the edge of the room so that you don't have to pray protect from melee, and that can save you a little bit of prayer. You don't have to flick your offensive prayers, but you can do that as well. I like to, just because it's something to do. Don't accidentally get hit by the bear like that, like I did, but that's fine. So from the second one, you don't need to pick up the weapon frame. You can see I grind up the spike and get my 80 shards, and then I needed 1 more wood if you see in the top left, so I go ahead and get that as well. Then I have 2 more herbs in this room, so I go ahead and grab those herbs so that I have all 3 of the herbs I need. And then I can make my potions as I'm running to the next room. I can go ahead and drop my pestle and mortar too, because I grinded up the spike from the bear and made all my potions. Now I find a room with 3 of the white fruit resource in it, so I might as well pick all those, because as you can see I still need a lot of that in the top left. So I'm just going to pick all 9 of these, and now I've checked all the demi-boss rooms at the bottom of the prep room. So now I'm going to zigzag my way up and to the right to try to get to the next demi-boss room. I see that there's more fruit here, so I'm going to pick the last one that I need, and then I'm also going to get these resources that I'm going to mine and chop wood so that I have everything that I need. So after doing that, now I just need 1 more of the ore to mine. And so just like that, I already got all 15 of my resources. I even got a fish drop here too, so I'm going to pick up a couple of the fish. I only pick up 2 because my inventory is getting pretty crowded, and I want to make sure that I have room to do everything that I need to do. I take a sip from my potion and then use the doses on the other 2 vials to decant them to 4 doses, and then I drop the extra vial. We did find another bear here, so this is going to be the 3rd demi-boss that we found, so I'll go ahead and kill it. Again, I'm going to try to get him trapped on the edge of the room so that I don't have to keep my prayer up, and then I can not worry about that. I'm also going to kill this rat here because, as you can see, I still need 140 shards. So we'll pick up those 20 and pick up this guy's. And now I have 436 shards, which I need another 64. And I have everything else that I need. So I'm opening rooms looking for mobs to kill so I can get more shards. I find some here and then I kill them, and now I should have all the shards that I need. Now, since my inventory is full, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the scepter, since I no longer need to open rooms. So I can go ahead and drop the scepter, and then I can get my 5th fish, then I can drop a fish, and then fish for my final 6th one, and then drop the harpoon and pick that one back up. And then I'm good to use my teleport crystal and head back to the start. So we made it back with 1:45 left, so we actually made great time there. I'll have another example where my RNG isn't so good in a little bit. But that's really it. So again, just running around trying to get my 15 remaining resources that I need, killing mobs to get the shards, and then just keep killing demi-bosses until I've killed 3. And now we're back to the start. The final part of the prep is going to be pretty straightforward. It's going to be just sitting there spamming, picking up the armor pieces that you dropped, and making sure that you can craft your tier 3 armor of everything. If you've been using the tracker, you should have plenty of shards, so just make sure you're crafting those. And then also make sure you make your tier 3 weapons, both the bow and the staff. And then that should be it. Then you just need to cook your fish and you're good to go. If you have any remaining time left because you did the rest of the prep pretty quickly, it can be a good idea to go try to find a few more fish. If there's some close by, it can be really easy to just grab some more fish. 6 should be enough if you don't make any big mistakes during the Hunllef fight for tier 3 armor, but it always helps to have a little bit more just to make it safer. I'm going to assume that you're already familiar with the Hunllef fight itself if you're watching a tier 3 hardcore Corrupted Gauntlet guide, because you probably wouldn't be doing hardcore Corrupted Gauntlet unless you already kind of know the fight. So I'm not going to talk about all of the boss mechanics, but I'm going to focus on what's important for doing this hardcore tier 3 armor method. So since you're playing a hardcore Ironman likely, the goal is going to be to minimize your chance of dying. This means that you'll want to use menu entry swapper on these doors to make sure that shift click on the doors will escape. You don't even have to be right next to the door. Just anytime during the fight, if things get unsafe, you can hold shift and click on one of the doors, and you should just leave immediately and not have to worry about dying. That said, ideally, if you don't make mistakes, you should be good to go. One thing I would definitely say is that the tornadoes with tier 3 armor can hit up to 15 damage each. So I would make sure that your health is at least 20 times the possible tornadoes that could come out at any point. So the first point in the fight, when only 2 tornadoes would come out, never let your health get below 40. The second point in the fight, for that middle third of his health where 3 tornadoes come out, make sure you're camping at least 60 health, 20 for each tornado. And the last part of the fight, if your health gets below 80, you want to make sure you're eating. Really, it's more important to make sure that you're praying against his attacks and not standing on the floor than it is to make sure you're never getting hit by the tornadoes. But ideally, you're going to do all of that. When the tornadoes are out and you're running away from them, if you're not as confident, you just need to make sure that you're running away and eating up to full rather than trying to miss 0 ticks and get every single attack in. You're going to want to use the bow and staff, like I said, always, because even if you are really confident with the halberd, it just takes one mistake for your hardcore status to be completely removed. And it's just so much safer to do it with the bow and staff. And it's just easier to keep the damage up while running away from the tornadoes. And it's just not worth it doing the halberd, in my opinion. If you're at the end of the fight and you ever run out of food and your health goes below about 60, I recommend just immediately shift clicking the door and exiting. Don't risk it and try to get the kill. You can see I did that here once because I'm an idiot. 27 HP and no food. Do I leave? That was stupid, but I knew I could get the kill. But yeah, I would not recommend doing that on a hardcore. Another thing is that when the tornadoes are coming for you, if you have their true tile selected, like I told you to do with that plugin, as long as their true tile and your true tile is not on top of each other, you will not take damage from the tornadoes. What this effectively means is while you're sitting there attacking Hunllef, if the tornadoes are 1 or 2 tiles away from your true tile, that's when you can click to run through them or run away, and you should always be safe. As you can see here, I'm waiting until they're 2 away and then just clicking through, or even waiting until they're 1 away and clicking through. If you run through them when they're 3 tiles away from you, that's when you'll take damage, because you will move 2 tiles as they move 1, and then they'll overlap. So you definitely don't want to do that. So really, during the tornado phases, as long as you're running and attacking, and then whenever the tornadoes get close to you, if you don't have a way to continue to run away, you can just wait until they're all 1 or 2 tiles from you and then run straight through them. This should work every time. That said, if you start lagging, this fight can get very, very dangerous very quickly. So I would recommend that always when you go into the fight, have an escape crystal in your inventory set to 2 seconds with the teleport. This means that if you start lagging and you don't put any inputs, so no mouse movement or keyboard presses for 2 seconds, then you should be good to go. So if you start lagging and your health was good, then I would just take my hands off the keyboard and mouse and just let the teleport crystal proc. You could also try shift clicking and spam clicking the door if you're just lagging a little bit, but again, the name of the game with hardcore is just play it safe and don't take risks. When you go into the fight with the escape crystal equipped, as I mentioned before, you're going to want to make sure that you don't accidentally get teleported out. I have a tendency sometimes to just hover my mouse over the next protection prayer that I'll have to do when Hunllef changes styles, and sometimes if you're just sitting there, you can get teleported out. So what you can do is you can wiggle your mouse back and forth slightly, as you can see I'm doing here, and that will prevent you from getting teleported when you get hit. So again, just I've definitely wasted an escape crystal or two just having them accidentally proc, so you can prevent that with just some small mouse movements. If you do all this and then you do the basic mechanics of the fight properly, where you're actually praying against all of Hunllef's attacks, and you're, not stepping on the floor and not taking tornado damage, 6 food really should be plenty to get the kill. In fact, I've done some kills where I haven't had to eat a single piece of food. And that's really it. So just make sure you're ready to leave through the door if you do make a mistake and your health gets chunked down and you don't have the fish to heal up. And that's it. The hard part of this is definitely getting the tier 3 armor and making sure you have the 6 food for the fight. I'm going to show one more example, full prep and kill, where I don't get quite as good prep RNG, so you could just see how I deal with it, and I'll talk through it. Alright, I start off here again by orienting my camera so Hunllef's at the top, and the first room I open has 3 mobs. I drop my pestle and mortar and the harpoon, and I start killing them. I get a weapon frame from the first kill, so then I just move on and don't bother killing the other 2. This next room that I open has 3 ore nodes in it, and so I'm going to mine them to make sure I get all 9 of the ore that we have here. Remember that I want to get 24 resources as I'm going through. I pop open this first demi-boss room, and I actually see 3 more wood resources. So I say, okay, well, I definitely need some wood too, so we're going to go ahead and chop all of these. Once I've done this, I ended up only getting 6 of the ore from above, so this will put me at 15 resources out of the 24 that I need. Again, I'm also going to want to make sure I get at least 1 of the white fruit resources so that I can make some of the armor once I make it back. I'm going to open this next demi-boss room, and I see that there's no demi-boss in here. I'm looking at my shard count, and it's a little low, so I'm going to kill this scorpion since it's the lower health mob of the 2. I also opened up the room above me and saw that there were a lot of white resource there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open this other demi-boss room to the right and then go up and open those white resources. I see that there's a bear there, so I'll keep that in mind for later, and I'll go ahead and pick this herb. Again, I'm still trying to kill the scorpion. I haven't been hitting too well on it, so it's taking quite a while, but eventually it should go down. Again, sometimes it might be better to not deal with it. The teleport crystal that I got there is nice though, because that's going to let me get back to the start without having to worry about, running all the way back there myself. I chopped this wood, so now that I have 12 wood, I'm going to go ahead and drop my axe, and then I'll drop the pickaxe as well, since I know I'll finish my resources here with just these white fruit over here. And so I'm going to pick these until I've filled up my inventory, and then that's going to be the 24 resources that I need. You can see that I barely broke the 230 shard barrier as well, so then I will have enough to craft my full armor. So I'm going to come back here, I'm going to immediately craft my tier 2 staff, and then I'm going to craft the armor, and then 3 vials. I will then drop all of my armor resources on the floor immediately, and then run to the center and hit 6 to take everything. There was a bear down at the bottom, so I'm going to equip my armor and my staff, and I'll go ahead and grab the rest of this white resource. I can look at the top left to see that I still need 4 more after collecting all of that. And then I need 1 wood and 7 ore. We're going to go ahead and kill this bear, as well as the unicorn probably, just to get some more shards. So again, I'm going to run over here and use the terrain to try to block some of the enemies moving so that I don't have to pray protect from melee the whole time, and I can save a little bit of prayer. We're just going to hang out here and kill this bear. Might take a little bit. Yeah, sometimes the staff just noodles and you get bad hits, as you can see here. Hit a lot of zeros and a 1. So yeah, it can be pretty painful. All right, and that should be the bear going down. And then I'm going to go ahead and kill this unicorn that was running at me as well. I pick up all the items that the bear dropped, and I'm also going to want to grind up the spike that he dropped to get the 80 shards from it. And we'll go ahead and kill the scorpion as well. So now I can go ahead and open the next room. I'm going to zigzag my way up to the next demi-boss area. I'm going to go ahead and grind up the spike from the bear there. And then I'm going to pick up these herbs. I still needed 3 total herbs to make my potions. And now I have all 3. I found a room with some ore, so I'm going to go ahead and mine some of these. I need to get a fishing spot pretty soon for inventory management, because those 3 herbs in my inventory, they can't go anywhere until I get some water to deal with them. I'm going to go ahead and mine all of this, though. And then once I get 1 more ore from mining this, I can drop my pickaxe. So we're going to mine that and then open up this room. All right, I'll drop my pickaxe. And now I have a room with a bunch of the white fruit. So I'm going to go ahead and pick all of that too, so that I can be good there. So now, again, I just need 1 more here. And then that'll be all our armor resources except 1 wood. Finally find some fishing spots. So I'm going to go ahead and use my vials. And then I'm going to use the herbs on them and only get 2 fish and then move on. Again, I'm just doing 2 for the inventory management, and then we'll worry about filling out the other 4 fish later. I'm going to go ahead and make my potions as I'm running around. And then I want to use one of the potions and then decant it into the other 2 so that I can drop the empty vial. There's going to be the last wood that I need, so now I can go ahead and chop that. So now I have all my armor resources and I can drop my axe. Then I'll drop that excess vial and then keep moving. I still need to find 2 more demi-bosses, because remember, I've only killed a bear and haven't killed the other 2. Other than the 2 demi-bosses, I really just need the fish, and I see a fishing spot here, so I figure might as well be a good time to go ahead and fill up on my fish and get the 6 that I need, and then I can drop the harpoon. We're cutting it a little bit close on time because we only have 1:50 left, and I still need to craft everything. But we do find one of the demi-bosses here, so I'm going to go ahead and kill it. You can flick your prayers here if you want to, but it's totally not necessary because you should have plenty of prayer with the 2 4-dose potions. But I just like doing it because it's, kind of fun and just something to do while I wait. And that should be it for him. And then I'm going to pick up the bowstring and the shards and move on. We now have plenty of shards, so I'm not too worried about actually crafting everything. And luckily we found another demi-boss right here. I'll drop my corrupted scepter here because I will no longer need to open up any rooms. Remember that scepter, you need it in your inventory or equipped to be able to light the lights on the edges of the rooms and open them. But I'm going to just drop it here because I know this is the last room. Then I take the orb and the shards, and then I teleport back to the start. Immediately I'm going to start crafting the tier 3 weapons and then the armor, and spam clicking to pick up all of the pieces on the ground that I'll need to craft all the armor. So again, I'm just crafting all the tier 2 armor and then picking all these up and then going to craft the tier 3. So then I've crafted all my tier 3 armor now, and now I just need to cook my fish. I can go ahead and drop the shards too. I only have 30 seconds left, so I could try to go look for more fish, but I'm just going to go into the fight because I have my 6 that I need. I'm going to start off the fight and just play it safe and do my normal Hunllef kill. And as long as I don't make any big mistakes, the 6 food should be plenty. As I mentioned before, whenever the tornadoes are 1 or 2 tiles away from me, I can run through them, and then I shouldn't have to worry about getting hit by them ever. Also, another tip with the tornado true tile is that you should never attack Hunllef unless there is at least a 1 tile gap between you and the true tile of the tornadoes. If the tornado's true tile is next to you and you attack Hunllef, then the tornadoes will get on top of you and hit you. As you can see here, I'm only attacking when there's at least one tile in between me and the true tile of the tornadoes, and I'm using all the space I have to the side here to just continue to run away until the tornadoes go away. Like I said before, you can run through them, but it's safer to not do that if you don't have to. Also, remember to make sure you're eating up whenever the tornadoes are out and your health is below the thresholds that I mentioned earlier. You want at least 20 HP for each tornado that's out on the field. So at the end, if your HP is below 80, I highly recommend eating up. I don't listen to my own advice here because I'm actually not playing my hardcore right now, so I don't bother eating there, but I definitely should have. And if you remember here, I went into the fight with 6 fish, and I actually finished and still have 6 fish in my inventory. So that was actually a 0 food Hunllef for kill count 1,000 on my Ironman. Pretty cool. But that's really it for Corrupted Gauntlet Tier 3 prep. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments, but hopefully that helps you guys a lot with completing Tier 3 armor prep in time, and hopefully you can all get some bofas on your hardcore. And yeah, good luck, and thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and I will be back later with more videos.